let's talk about how things aren't exactly going well across the world, and certain progressive talking heads don't seem to understand that this isn't just the consequence of Brexit. But essentially, right, they have got such a parochial view of Britain that they think that the Conservative government is responsible for all of the evils in the world. And don't get me wrong, the Conservative government is responsible for almost all of the evils in Britain, but they're not quite the world hegemons that the left would have them be made out to be. But anyway, if you want to own something in the coming era of earning nothing and being happy, you could go and check out our merch store.
If you want to be unhappy, yeah.
Yeah. Where you can get merch, which obviously supports us, because obviously demonetized, help keep the lights on, and help us continue to do what we do here. So this, another hysterical woman having a go at people for being the things that they are. This is Marina Purkiss, who is a commentator at Byline Times, or so, just some lefty rag, right? So she spends 9 minutes in the full clip going, I'm not going to subject you to any of it either. I've already subjected you to enough. But she goes on about things to Jacob Rees-Mogg, who has to very patiently explain to her that she's wrong on everything, because she is actually almost wrong on almost everything. But essentially what this comes down to is yet another hectoring woman who doesn't understand that her paradigm in the world is not the only paradigm with which to see things. And in fact, it's quite a narrow view of things when you start expanding what else is happening, because she essentially thinks that the Conservatives and Brexit are the source of all of the woes of this country. And that's not really true. The Conservatives are actually just kind of useless and stuck in the Blairite paradigm that we can't, well, they're not prepared to escape from. But anyway, so she makes a few points in this, saying children are getting poorer education, which I personally agree with, but comparatively across the world isn't really true, but it's not the most important thing. The UK has the highest energy bills on the planet. Jacob Rees-Mogg voted to stop people from protesting, and everything's going great in Europe, basically. And so almost all of those things are false, but we'll get to that in a minute. But Lawrence Fox put it well, because it was really her attitude that came across, and you can see from her body language, right? She is like a girlfriend who is you're about to break up with, and who is going on about your and she just accuses Jacob Rees-Mogg of being a liar. But the thing is, every point that Jacob Rees-Mogg said was true, right? And again, I'm not going to subject you to the clips just because it's sufferable. But my question is, well, how can we break up with her? Because she's, I mean, look at her face. Look at her. She's just not taking anything he says seriously. She's just, no, everything he says is a lie, so I'm not going to believe any of it, right? And so after this, you can see that she replies to one of the clips. Hello, GB News viewers. I ran out of time to say that deregulation means ditching your workers' rights, like holiday pay. She thinks that Britain invented workers' rights. We wrote the legislation for the EU about the workers' rights. Okay, never mind. And so Jacob Rees-Mogg is going to get rid of those, and he opposes minimum wage because he wants the free market to set wages. Now think about what that will do to UK wage growth. It won't raise them. Oh, really? So you're saying the supply for labour is way higher than the demand for labour, and so you need to artificially rig the market. Well, why don't we talk about the supply for labour then? Right? This is just, again, basic economics. I'm not an economist, but I understand this. She carries on saying, now think about what it means for your pocket. If you don't get paid when you take holiday, or if you get sick, here's another clue. You won't be better off. Please start seeing these people for what they are. It's like, and it's for you, not me. It's like, look, you want us to live in a world that is just utterly managerial and completely controlled, where every individual human is just a replica of everyone else and is interchangeable as the next. This small-minded understanding of the economic problems that are going on shows that she doesn't realize that the paradigm that we're in is coming to an end. It's all unraveling, right? The government knows that things are going badly, right? This is an article from City AM where government MPs have warned that the UK's shrinking and aging population is limiting economic growth with outdated and static working practices. An exodus of over 50s from the labour market has worsened shortages, a cross-party House of Commons Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy report said. So why isn't she on the side of this? Oh, hang on, no. Labour shortages means higher wages. So why isn't that something that the left would be in favour of? Why is it instead? She's like, no, I'm not going to talk about this. And she's obviously not against immigration, mass immigration. The chairman, Darren Jones, said, this is what's holding in growth. And so the Conservative answer to this is just bring in unlimited foreigners. And that's why, I mean, last year they brought in 1 million new people, 500,000 net. But of course, a lot of these are not people who actually have jobs or actually will get jobs. And, you know, a lot of them will, thank God. But the point is, immigration is costing us billions every year, 1.3 billion a year is the net deficit from mass immigration. And so, unsurprisingly, this isn't growing the economy. But we'll come back to the growth of the economy in a minute, right? She then goes on to talk about energy bills. And energy bills are through the roof. It's like, yes, why might that be? So this is...
I think, honestly, because, you know, I'm thinking also about economics and all this. Yeah. I've literally heard many people who blame the rise of energy prices to the free market. I'm saying, well,
that's not how that works.
It's not how it works. We have sanctions against that are imposed by governments, and regardless of that discussion, it is something that it's imposed by the government. So it's the leftist attempt to constantly blame the market about anything,
and it's just they don't understand.
It's like blame first, think later.
As these this is the Energy and Climate Intelligence Unit, which is a non-profit organization that just promotes factual information about energy and climate issues in the UK. And they said that in the middle of 2021, gas prices, not petrol for Americans, actual natural gas, started picking up before spiraling upwards as Russia invaded Ukraine in February. Supplies have been constrained, first by a demand/storage mismatch after COVID, as in the COVID lockdowns and the crisis has caused an issue in the supply chain, and then by Putin in retaliation to European sanctions against his country. So neither of these are free market effects.
Yeah,
these are expressly state actor effects, right? And so UK gas cost 45p per therm in late February 2021, and then it went up to £5.38, which is colossal. And at the end of August, it spiked at £6.31, and now it's about £5, right? So that's massive increase, not because of the free market. When the free market was operating with these unconstrained forces, such as the COVID lockdowns, supply chain issues, and Russian invasion, it was down to 45p. And she said, well, the UK has the highest energy cost in all of the world. That's not true. Actually, it's only beaten in Europe by Germany and Denmark. Again, both in Europe. But again, not because of Brexit, because of other geopolitical factors and domestic policy. As we said, this is talking about the lockdowns. Dan Tubbs has done an amazing series on Lotus.com called Brokenomics, in which he talks about the economics of lockdown and how lockdown affected all the supply chains and how lockdown made everything more expensive. So do go and check those out because they're incredibly informative. And that's why I know what I'm talking about now, because I've watched these. So anyway, moving on, she talks about how, of course, Brexit's going to destroy economic growth, and this is even if she doesn't say it, a lot of other people are saying it. Well, economic growth across Europe is not very good. 0.8% is expected in 2023. It's not brilliant. Why? They didn't Brexit. Why are they getting it? But it's terrible in the UK. In the UK, they're expecting 0.3% in 2023.
Yeah.
So barely any economic growth. So if GDP going up is tied to the number of workers that we have, why is it when we bring in 500,000 net new workers, the GDP isn't reflecting that? It's a very, very small amount of growth. So that's not really how that's working, is it? Anyway, moving on to debts and deficits. Again, Dan has been covering all of this because really what they're trying to do, as Dan repeatedly points out, is put a plaster over a massive structural crack and hoping that this Band-Aid will hold this thing together. And it's no. They're trapped in the sort of collapsing end of the economic paradigm that we're in, and we can't get out of it. So bringing in unlimited foreigners will not fix our economic problems, and it will create a huge number of other problems, and it will cost us a load of money. Anyway, she goes on to talk about wages being depressed, but she doesn't talk about taxes. Now that, to me, is really weird, right?
Can I say something on the point you said before?
Oh, please,
so it's very
please,
pertinent because that was the same rhetoric we heard in Greece by the Syriza party.
Oh, really?
Yes, because they opened
Syriza were a communist coalition.
They opened the borders, and in a year, I think we had an influx of, I think, around 1 million immigrants.
Really?
And the question is, if on there's something really sinister here, because if you have an influx of 1 million people, which is roughly 10% of the population,
That's massive.
yeah, in a year, and you don't make the economy more competitive, what are they going to do?
Yes.
How are they
Where are
going
they going to work?
Yeah, so even from a leftist perspective, where assimilation is the only thing that they care about, how are 1 million people going to be assimilated into
where are they going to work?
Yeah.
Where are they going to live?
Yes.
And you'd think that, okay, fair enough.
It's the equivalent of if 7 million people just up in a year.
It's mad. Because Greece has got 9 million people or something, right?
It's around 10 and a half.
Yeah, but that's not big.
Yeah.
That's a small country. But anyway, she talks about wages, but she doesn't want to talk about taxes. And I think that's also quite an important aspect of one's wages, is it not? Because, of course, the reason I brought up the debts and deficit from down there is because we have a massive amount of debt and deficit. So the deficit this year, we've had to borrow £139 billion. That is a staggering amount, isn't it? But that's just a ridiculous amount. And so, of course, we're not going to be getting any tax cuts. Jeremy Hunt has just said, no, we're going to have tax rises. The Conservatives we're going to raise your taxes. They ran a platform of lowering taxes, but it's simply not possible. Because if you bring in 1 million new people every single year, and you have a massive suite of public services, like the NHS or the social services, or the channel migrants who are putting up in things, or all of these other things have to be paid for. And so, okay, well, we're going to have to just start borrowing. We're just going to have to start, because what we're doing, really, is promising services to the entire world. Anyone who can land here gets to consume lots and lots of taxpayer money. So our taxes are not going to go down. So that is now going to be half your wages, or, a third of your wages, that are taken by the government. Well, wouldn't you like that yourself?
I think that's the dying breath of cosmopolitan liberals who talk about a global community, and that there should be obligations towards the global community. And they still operate under the conceit that Western institutions can totally assimilate without problem anyone.
Yeah. But also, again, it just smacks me as just being vaguely dishonest, being like, the Conservatives aren't going to raise your wages. And it's like, yeah, but you want to raise my taxes. Yeah. How's that different to just outright lowering my wages?
I saw one of those Labour posts where they said the Conservatives are going to increase your taxes. We're going to lower this tax. And I was saying, yeah, what about all the other taxes? What are you going to do with them?
Please spare me.
They're going to take with one hand what they give with the other.
Yeah, I mean,
even more.
At one point in this thing, she goes on about energy prices. And Jacob Rees-Mogg is just like, well, the government puts a 25% green tariff on all energy. Yeah. And it's not exactly 25% on every single type of energy, but it evens out to about 25%. And she doesn't want to hear it. It's like, no, but the Conservative government has done what the left wants, which is impose a green tariff on energy. I mean, you should just get rid of it. That would be our energy supplies slashed by 25% overnight. And yet still, this is what's happening. So anyway, moving on, let's talk about inflation. Oh my God. Inflation, for anyone who doesn't know, again, Dan has done a brilliant episode on this. It's just a stealth tax. It's just a way of stealing money from people who worked hard by just printing money to devalue what they already have. Does she talk about this? Of course she doesn't talk about this. She sat there screeching that Jacob Rees-Mogg is a liar and just an evil Conservative who wants people to be poor, but not thinking about what has had to happen and what has been done because of the COVID lockdowns and the inflationary money pumping out into the economy. Right. Inflation in Europe is really bad. Again, Brexit. Well, this has nothing to do with Brexit, and yet their inflation is 6.9%, and that's down from 8.5% in February, right? That's 6.9% in March. That's staggeringly high. That's really bad. In the UK, it's 6.1%, which is staggeringly high and really bad, but not quite as bad as Europe, and I don't know why, I've no idea. Go watch Dan's Brokenomics. He'll tell you. But the point is, she's trying to say that everything about Britain is worse because of Brexit, because of the Tories. It's like, that's not true. They're a worldwide phenomenon. And these are the consequence of the lockdowns we had in 2020 and 2021. And the Bank of England have just got to the point now where they're just telling us, look, you're just going to be poorer. You're just going to have to accept that you are going to be poorer. Right? This is what the Bank of England's chief economist, I think it's pronounced Hugh Pill, Oh, sorry. It's even worse, actually. It went up.
Inflation.
Cumulative. Right. Okay. Sorry. Thanks for that, John. I didn't know that. See, I need to go and do my homework with Dan Moore. But the point is, inflation is terrible, and it's terrible everywhere, right? And it's because we printed loads of money, and then we have a bunch of supply chain issues because of these lockdowns. Like, this is all man-made. Like, we did this. These were executive decisions that were made. These are not like the natural consequences of the market. Anyway, the Bank of England have just got to the point where it's like, look, you're just going to have to accept being poor, right? Hugh Pill, the chief economist, says the British people just need to accept that they're going to be poorer instead of trying to claw back the historic drop in living standards after a jump in inflation. And so when you've got some lefty commentator going, the Conservatives did this. No, this is not, I mean, they are partially responsible, yes. But like, it's much bigger than just merely the Conservatives.
It's due to the policies that they implemented.
Yeah, but it's also worldwide policies that are being implemented by governments all around the world. And the sort of knock-on cause and effect of all of the terrible decisions that have been made in the last 3 years.
Inflation, I think, is the favorite weapon of the statist because they constantly want to solve problems of their voting constituency and of their supporters by just printing money. And that is, an indirect tax.
Yeah. I mean, in 18th century England, that was a crime that got you the death penalty. The most types of death penalty, the most frequent ones, were murder and then interfering with the money supply, interfering with the integrity of the coinage, was clipping coins or diluting coins, things like that. That would get you the death penalty in England in 1800s, in 1700s. Now it's just government policy, and because it's obviously bad for everyone. But anyway, but the Bank of England economist just gives us a really just steely-eyed, like, you're just going to have to live with this, and there's just nothing that we're going to be able to do about this, really. Somehow in the UK, someone needs to accept that they're worse off and stop trying to maintain their real spending power by bidding up prices, whether higher wages or passing energy costs on to customers, Pill said in an interview. The Bank of England Governor Andrew Bailey had said this last year, but he was rebuked by trade unions. But he also said, rising prices have made us poorer as a country. Yeah, we know. Pill was more direct, though. He said there was a reluctance to accept that, yes, we're all worse off and we'll have to take our share. A tight jobs market and strong corporate pricing power means that firms can pass on costs at higher prices and workers can demand wage increases, fueling inflation further. The UK, which is a big importer of natural gas, is facing a situation that the price of what you're buying from the rest of the world has gone up a lot, relative to the price of what you're selling to the rest of the world, which is mainly services in the case of the UK. If what you're buying has gone up a lot relative to what you're selling, you're going to be worse off. So great. This is not Brexit's fault. This is not not individually the Conservative government's fault. This is a consequence of a massive confluence of things, of bad decisions that have been made in the last 3 years. And she sat there going at Jacobs Rees-Mogg going, no, but you're just evil. You're just lying. And it's like, no, he's not. They're just actually, I mean, if you want to take a rather conspiratorial view, you might say, well, maybe they've been doing this on purpose. Maybe they have. But this is the reality that we're living in. And simply saying, well, we want fixed wages is not going to solve the problem. But anyway, I'm not going to carry on. If you want more information on this, go and check out Dan's Brokenomics series. It's genuinely excellent. And he's explaining all of this in much better detail than I can.
We hope you enjoyed that segment from the podcast Lotus Eaters. If you did, you can go to our website where you can get the podcast in full, uncensored, and for free, as well as paying as little as £5 a month to get access to all of our extra premium content. For example, this video presentation I did on how real communism has already been tried, looking at the texts and history of Marxism. And if you'd like to see all the rest of the content that we're putting out, you can follow us at LotusEaters_com on Twitter and on Getter. Until next time, goodbye.